Okay, well, welcome to Go Groundwork. This is going to be session 8. We're going to talk about open houses, and we're going to talk about how to pre-qualify buyers, which I think is I'll just tell you, open houses are they've never been my thing. That does make me the weird person around here, though, right? Most agents do great with open houses. You know, I would say that for anybody that I really think that your biggest source of business is going to be that book of business, that database that you build. And for most agents, the second most important one is going to be open houses, because that leads directly to building your database, right? But pre-qualifying buyers and sellers, now that is a big deal, right? Because, you know, the one thing that we all as humans have the same amount of, we don't have the same amount of talent, we don't have the same amount of good looks or charm or any other, you know, characteristic, but we all have the same amount of time, all right? So how is it that, you know, people can waste an entire day versus people who can be like immensely successful, right? They're all doing the same toolbox as far as time goes. So if you value time, and you should, pre-qualifying your potential buyers and sellers is going to be absolutely key. So, all right, so Groundwork always begins with a mindset piece, which we call goal setting to the now. We're going to talk about that next. And then, of course, winning with open houses by finding them, and then what you do before, how to get people into the door, and what you do during. And then we're going to talk about, I forget what LP Mama stands for. I should know this, but it's a follow-up. It's a way to talk to people, okay? And then, of course, the session question, we'll come back and wrap on this, is what do you want to accomplish someday? All right, so goal setting to the now. So have you ever heard the expression that, you know, we as humans, we typically grossly overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we vastly underestimate what we can get accomplished in 5 years. And that is something that is absolutely true. And I can tell you, because I've heard the words come out of Gary Keller's mouth in person, you know, everybody on earth is within 5 years of where they want to be in life, which is a really interesting thought, because it kind of takes aging and getting older and progressing in life, kind of takes it out of the question, right? So how do you get there, right? And that is, take your goal, whatever your goal is. You know, what's the one thing you want to do someday? Take someday and form a plan to actually accomplish it, right? And so we start by talking about that one thing, right? That could be, it needs to be a strong enough vision. You need to be able to visualize it. You need to be able to describe it, right? What does that look like for you? And understand that is something that can be very difficult for people, and that can be very simple for people to form whatever that is. And also understand that it's okay if it changes, right? You know, you don't have to have a goal someday of owning a beach house on Maui, and then maybe something changes in your life where you're like, I don't really want that anymore. And it's okay to change that. But what you can't do is just dream of something and never make a plan to get there, right? So take that thing that you want to do someday, whether that's a professional goal, whether that's a personal goal, and then what is that thing? What's the one thing I can do to get to that level in the next 5 years? And then we work backwards. We're going to take, based on that 5-year goal, what's the one thing I can do this year? And then monthly, weekly, daily, and then right now. Okay? Have you heard of the book? I'm going to ask you because you're here. Have you heard the book called The One Thing? The One Thing was written by our founder, Gary Keller. And you know, there it is. There's the big quote from it right there. And you know, Gary's written a lot of books. He's written a lot of books specifically about the real estate space. But The One Thing has become a book that's really transcended, you know, all verticals, right? So not just the real estate world. It's become a reference book. It's just a great book that it doesn't matter what you do for a living, whether it's real estate or anything else. It's been just a transformational book, right? It's a huge deal, and it's kind of put him as a peer of the John Maxwells and the Robert Kiyosaki's and those people that have written these just transformational books over the years. So that's a great thing, and this is what this is straight out of, right? It's easy to look at what do I need to do right now, what do I need to do today, or by the end of the day, or by the end of the week, right? And for a lot of people, even like, I know I have to do all this stuff this month, right? But here's what it is. If you can take that someday goal and chunk it down into the steps that you can logically progress to get there, so that you have vision on it today. Like if I told you had to go swimming today, okay, great, I can go do that. What would you do? I'd plan, I'd say, okay, you know what, I got 3 o'clock, I can do 3 o'clock, and then you go jump in a pool at 3 o'clock. Pretty easy, right? If I told you, hey, you need to go swimming in 3.5 years from now, that's a different thing, right? That's a different thing altogether. But it just goes to show the human brain can look at short-term things. If all your short-term things, goals, can stack up into that plan such that one day you get to that big why thing, then you're going to get there. So, you mentioned investment properties, right? Yeah. So that would be maybe that's not, this thing doesn't want to go backwards. Oh, come on. Maybe that's not a someday goal, right? Maybe that's a 5-year goal. Maybe that's a 1-year goal. And honestly, it's pretty easy to get to that. We can help you. We can help anybody come up with a plan to buy investment properties. Why? Well, because we know what it costs. We know how to finance it. We know what your cash outlay is going to look like, right? All we need to know is what your strategy is, and we can help you build that. That's not a someday goal. Trust me, you can get there a lot faster than someday. In fact, if that's a someday goal, and this is the thing with any someday goal, someday is not defined. People that have, one day I'd like this, they never get there. They never get to that goal because they don't do this exercise. Okay? All right, winning with open houses. How do you find them? Well, your own sellers is the best one, right? Go out and take listings. Listings are the way you can control the market. And not only that, listings are leverage, because listings get you buyers, right? So if you think about every listing you take, you've got that transaction side. More than likely, that seller is going to buy somewhere else, right? Hopefully that seller will refer somebody to you, and then with any luck, you'll get a sign call, or your advertising for that property might catch you a buyer. So it's pretty easy to take a single listing and turn it into 4 transactions, right? So that's the easiest way to find an open house, is with your own sellers. But here's the other one, and this is going to be agents in our own market center. I mean, you just happen to join the biggest brokerage in the city, okay? We have the most listings in the city. And I can tell you that not everybody wants to do open houses. I personally don't like to do my own. I don't really like to do any open houses, but I've never wanted to do my own open houses, right? Simply because, in my opinion, I worry about saying something that would give away, could potentially give away my seller's positions in a negotiation, innocently doing it. And while I believe that I'm skilled enough not to do that, I prefer not to even be in the situation where it could look like that, right? But that's me, and like I said, I'm probably the only one that I know that actually feels that way. But if you want open houses, our private Facebook group, great place to pick them up. Just go post on there. Hey, I'd like to do an open house this weekend. What you got? For sale by owners. Did you know you can hold a for sale by owner open? So there's an entire prospecting strategy, right, to have for sale by owners to acquire them as listings. And I would tell you, like, when you look at the actual market today, we're sitting in a market where for sale by owners, they need us. And that's not always the case, right? You know, a few years ago when we had this just outrageously strong seller's market, I'll be honest, for sale by owners, they didn't need us. They didn't. Now, not to get a buyer, they might need us to hold the deal together, because that was a problem back then. Today, they need us to even sell the property, but here's what you're going to find out. For sale by owners, they already don't think that they need you, which means they're wrong, because they don't see the value in an agent, right? That's really what it comes down to. A lot of people say, oh, well, they don't want to spend the money. You know what? That's really not what it's about. If you got them enough money, they'd have no problem paying you for it, right? I mean, for sale by owners, still go to the grocery store to buy eggs. Very few of them raise their own chickens to get eggs and not pay the middleman. So it's not about that. It's about the value that they don't feel you bring. But, you know, if you can lead with value when you contact a for sale by owner, and instead of saying, hey, you know what, you're a for sale by owner and you're making a stupid decision and you should list with me, that's how they hear it, doesn't matter what you tell them, versus, hey, you're a for sale by owner and you're in an area that I really have a lot of success in. Would you care? I mean, could I hold your house open for you? No strings attached? Well, that's an entirely different message. Now what I'm doing is I'm saying to that for sale by owner, hey, before I ask you for anything, can I show you the value that I bring? Right? And here's the thing. Are you going to sell that for sale by owner house to somebody? Maybe. Are you going to give that person exposure? Yes. Are you going to potentially pick up buyers that aren't going to buy that house but are looking for another house? Absolutely. And that's really why you do it. And number 4 is builders, especially small builders. Not all builders don't make the mistake of thinking that builders won't talk to you, especially the smaller builders. But you know what? Even some of the bigger builders, right? You know, some of these giant mega neighborhoods that are out there, you might have a builder that has one rep on site and has lots of different properties that are on the ground ready to go. And right now, we're seeing builders with a high inventory right now, and they are pulling out all the stops to sell properties, right? This would be a great time to start building those relationships. Be the agent that brings value to builders rather than the agent that wants to work against the builders, right? Because what do builders have? Well, they have a great product, especially for first-time home buyers, because at least right now, in August of 2025, they are giving away the farm. They're sponsoring low interest rates. They're doing high concessions. I mean, they're doing everything they can to make it affordable. And in a lot of cases, new construction is actually more affordable, even though the price might be higher than a pre-owned home. And you know, this is an opportunity to bring value to that builder rep, because what do a lot of people need to do before they can buy that builder's home? They might have to sell a home first, right? Yeah. You think the builder can help them with that? Nope. But if you're on good terms with these builder reps, potentially you could get referrals that way. Yeah. So here's a tip. So set up an auto email through the MLS, just like you would with any buyer, and have it send you an email every Monday morning with the new listings in just the market center. We can show you how to do that. We actually have 3 MLS IDs. So, you know, you could set it up based on that. And that's a great thing to do. And here's why you do this Monday morning. And we're going to talk about this next. But the basic level is I go hold an open house, right? A really strong open house is something that you're going to prospect and market around first. So during the week, as you're leading up to that as an event, it's how you turn that open house into an event that people want to go to. So now every Monday you can lead generate by calling the agents on your list for an open house. Yep, there you go. Add that to your lead generation. By the way, we've had agents in this market center first year agents making the mid $100,000 in GCI doing nothing but open houses. We've actually seen that happen. So how do you prep for an open house for your listing? If it's your listing, right? That's important. Always make sure that you've got a professional photographer. The days of iPhone photos working are gone. Let me get this back on me. Come on. Okay, camera's looking at you. Do you see me? All right. Sorry, that camera tracks, supposedly. So that's super important, right? So the pictures that you use are what's going to be the best representation of marketing the home. And, you know, you can't, I've seen a lot of people not sell listings or not sell them for enough because their photography is no good, right? It really makes a difference. And you think about it, right? Where do most buyers see the house first? Online. They're not walking into real estate offices and looking through the old books that we used to have, right? That's typically, I've never seen that happen, right? So how it presents online is huge. And here's the thing, those photos are what you're going to refer back to, and you're going to use those in every piece of marketing you do. So that's the first thing you want to do. A day or two before your open house, you want to call your client, make sure they don't have any questions, right? Because remember, it's an event for you, but it's an event for them too, because they're going to be gone. Right? Get the dogs and cats out of the house. Don't just park them in the garage. That's always the hardest thing with open houses, when you have pets. Yep. So the day and the time of the open house, and not only that, when are you going to arrive, when are you going to leave? I can't tell you how frustrating it is when you go into your open house and your open house is starting and your seller hasn't left yet. So you really, really want to make sure that you tell them, okay, so the open house is going to be from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. I will, for an hour before, I'll be out setting out signs. I will be at the house, and I want to shake your hands a half an hour before as you're walking out with your pets, okay? And then, of course, I need to tidy up. So do me a favor, give me till 3:30 before you come back home. I want to make sure everything is good. I want to make sure your house is, you know, clean and everybody's out and all that. Remind them that the house should look its best and be as clean and tidy as possible. Here's what that means. And this is something, by the way, you're going to do the same step right before the photographer gets there, right? So I'll tell you what I tell people. I tell my clients, my sellers, is your house should feel empty to you if it's correct, if it's right. No tchotchkes hanging around anywhere. You know, we don't want a whole bunch. We don't need the knife block on the countertop. We don't need the coffee maker out. We certainly don't need the bread machine out. Please remove the shampoo from your shower, because you know it's an eyesore, right? And because as soon as that for sale sign, as soon as my sign is in your front yard, your house is no longer your house. It's just an asset that you own. So that's kind of how I explain it. And I really hit on the whole, when I say detailed, I mean shower needs to be, you know, we don't want anything in there. We want people to see their stuff in your house, not your stuff in their house. And if somebody other than you is going to be there, make sure the sellers know who that is. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is Dawn. Dawn is going to be the person that actually holds your open house for you. Do us a favor. She's going to be there 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after. Reminder, the house needs to look like this. And just remember, when your doorbell rings, it's not me, it's going to be somebody you haven't met before, but she's awesome. And then, of course, the day before, you want to take a look at the MLS. You want to pull comps in the area. You want to know what else is for sale in the neighborhood, and really anything that's sold very recently in that neighborhood. And I would say study that. You want to know that in your head, right? And here's why. You're going to get neighbors in the open house. And they're going to want to know. They're going to want to tell you all about the other house that sold and how much better that house was. There's always something, right? And then, of course, I always suggest that you know a couple of stats that you've committed to memory around what open house you're running at a minimum. So, for example, it's best when people say, hey, what's the market like in this neighborhood? What you don't want to say is, there's a lot of ways to answer that, right? You don't want to say, oh, it's decent, or, well, it's a little challenging right now, or, man, it's actually really good. Those are okay. I'm not saying that's terrible, but what would be better is to say, well, right now, the average days on market in this neighborhood's 45 days, and the average sales price is $227 per square foot. And as a matter of fact, this house is priced below that. So we really expect to see this house move faster than that. I'm curious why you ask. Do you have a house to sell yourself, right? So when you can give a stat like that right on the fly without having to look it up, it leads you to opportunity with further discussions. Be sure the house is staged well. You want the buyers to see themselves. You want to see their stuff there, not the seller's stuff there. And how do you know when that's happened? When the buyer walks in and says, oh wow, our couch would look great right here. Okay? That's good. What you don't want to hear is, oh my gosh, look at all those deer heads on the wall, right? That's always the toughest one, by the way. When you get a hunter, man, they are not going to take those trophies down. They're just not. Yeah. And you get somebody in there that doesn't like seeing a bunch of dead Bambis on the wall, they're going to get the heebie-jeebies and get out of that house. They just won't buy the house. Yeah. So that's always a problem. I'm not an anti-hunter at all. And I certainly can understand the concept of, imagine bringing your 4-year-old daughter into a house with a bunch of deer heads on the wall. Yeah. And she's never been experienced to that before. I'm promising you, that ain't going to go well. I have a daughter. Ask me how I know. Right? All right, so how do we stage? So here's 5 tips, and they're all labeled number 1. Make sure all their personal photos are put up. Families, friends, vacations, anything else that's personalized to the seller. Most of these are going to be tchotchkes. Like if you walked into my living room, you'd see my wife has an explosion of our, family adventures just everywhere, right? Not necessarily on the walls, but on tables and on built-ins and stuff. That needs to go, right? Now, sometimes you might have, a very particular nice big framed thing on the wall that happens to be a family member. I'm not quite that concerned about that. It's the little tchotchkes that get in the way. Anything that has sentimental or monetary value, it just needs to go. Things like urns, that might contain ashes, and it's too precious. It needs to go. Sports teams, pillows, blankets, all that stuff should probably go too. Funny story. This guy turned out to be my son's and my daughter's athletic director at their middle school in Mansfield. But I came in to list his house, and this guy, who I just love this guy. This guy is like, all the kids were terrified of him at school, right? Because he leads with that. He's a coach, right? He leads with discipline, and he's got the just intense stare. His facial expressions are always intense. He can be really intimidating. But he's a huge Redskins fan, right? So I walked into and I'm a lifelong Dallas resident. So I walked into the first house that we've worked with together. And, he's kind of giving me the tour, right? And first room as you walk in, you go to the left, and it's kind of a front bedroom office, and it is Redskins. Like the walls are painted red with gold stripes and Indian heads everywhere, which I guess they don't call them the Redskins anymore, which he is not a fan of that.
Yeah.
But the first thing I told him, I said, wow, you think a Cowboys fan would ever buy this house? And he was like, yeah, that's probably a good point. You think I should probably paint that? I'm like, might be a good idea, Hate to think that would torpedo a deal for you, but it's so personalized. I know you love it, but remember, it's not your house right now. It's just an asset you happen to own. That word track right there really diffuses a lot of that. And what's so funny is he's preparing to sell the current house that he's in that, of course, he bought through me. This thing is being, you know what it is? I'm going to move this closer because it doesn't like coming across. It sees you and me, and it doesn't know who is who. So, sorry about that. So anyway, his current house, which is larger than the first house, has this big open upstairs area. And it's red-skinned out too, but he didn't paint it this time. And it was so funny, right? Because, a couple months ago, we're up there walking around and, coming up with some things that maybe he needs to do to get the property ready to go on the market. And he's like, are you proud of me? I didn't paint it in Redskins this time. All right, dangerous items, meaning pew-pews, and prescription drugs should be locked away or put up. I hate to think that, the general public would take something like that. Yeah. Or worse, use something like that. Yeah. And yet it does happen. And here's the thing. Let's talk about prescription drugs. Most of them are about the size of a pill bottle, right? Easily concealable, frankly easy to lose. Now, what would happen if the seller forgot where they put them? It would be really easy to accuse you or accuse whoever your agent was, if it wasn't you that held that open, or some random person of stealing those. Because it does happen. It definitely happens. Drugs are a bad thing. And then lastly, is if you think that your sellers would listen to a quote-unquote professional better when it comes to staging, go ahead and hire a stager to come in and do a walkthrough. It's always good to have stagers that that you have a relationship with, and because sometimes you're going to have that person that's just, there's a personality type out there that they hire you for your expertise and then they don't take your advice, which I don't get, but whatever. Just know that by the time you get through these things, you're going to know this when it's photography time, when photographer shows up and it's like there's still tchotchkes everywhere and they still refuse to take your deer heads off, and that might be a time to get a consult in.
So do you do anything to cover yourself? Like you were saying, having them put their prescriptions away, and if they misplace something, anything like that, is there anything you can do to... So
I'm going to repeat that because I'm mic'd. The question is do I do anything to ensure that, this stuff gets done? And at the end of the day, you really are not in control. You're in an advisory position. But what I tell them is I just add a little bit of detail. And it's like I was telling you this morning, I like to ask great questions, right? So I might not say something like, hey, be sure you take any, firearms or swords or, anything that's really sentimental to you, and especially prescription drugs. It's best that you get them completely out of the house. Now, that's one way you could do it. Just be very clear and concise, but you could always say something like, hey, I'm curious, would you be concerned at all about somebody walking through and picking up a prescription drug that you might have? Because, we can't know if someone's a druggie when they walk in. You never know what people are. Oh, that's a great idea, Mike. I should take that out. Yeah, you should. Do you have any Same thing like guns, whiskeys, people have like rare whiskeys, and some things can be really expensive, right? And here's the thing is we don't necessarily know what the value is. Sometimes it's not a monetary value, right? So I typically go through, this is a message that's always coming out of me with my sellers long before open houses ever happen. Because, look, this is the same advice whether it's an open house or whether it's just market ready and people are coming in and doing showings, showings with just their agent, right?
So, like, if I'm like a new agent having an open house for somebody else's listing, do I need to like ask, I guess, who the listing agent is? Like, is there anything in their house to be concerned, stuff like that? Or?
That's probably a good idea. What I would think would be even better would be, ask that listing agent, hey, listing agent, could you set up a maybe 10-minute phone call with me and your seller? I just want to make sure that, I'm crossing I just want to make sure I want them to know things like, take your valuables, take your drugs, take stuff like that. And I want to see if they have any questions that, for me. That would be a great idea. And that may or may not happen, right? So hopefully it's you reaching out to the seller or the listing agent reaching out to the seller. And when you get there a few minutes early, like that 30 minutes early, that's what you go in with. Hey, I'm really excited to get started. It's great to meet you. What are some of the things that you feel most represent why did you buy this house? I love that question. When you were out shopping for houses, what was it about this house that made you buy it versus the others? Because that's the story I want to tell people that walk in. And by the way, please, I'm sure your listing agent probably already said this, but when you leave, please take anything dangerous and any kind of drugs, prescription drugs, please take that, or let's lock it up so that it's absolutely, nobody would ever know it's here, right? All right, so before, how to prepare an open house for another agent's listing. Preview it a few days, ideally if you can. Always drive around the neighborhood to familiarize yourself. Right, pull comps for the house, right, just like you would if it was yours, as well as anything else that's on the market in the neighborhood. You got to know your competition, because chances are, when they leave your open house, they're either going to that open house down the street or they've already seen it, right? Bring a broom, bring some Febreze or a duster. I love this idea. Because here's the thing, sellers are going to forget to do something. Or they're just not going to notice things, right? Pet owners, a great example. If you have a dog, dogs have a scent. Not everybody likes that scent. But when you are a pet owner, you are nose blind to it. You don't even notice it anymore. And yet somebody that walks in that's never owned a dog walks in and goes, woo! Somebody has cats, right? So those are the kinds of things. It's always good that you don't have to necessarily bring them in, but maybe have them in your trunk. Yeah. Maybe a dust buster. Remember the dust busters? Those were great for this kind of stuff. Call the listing agent and ask them a couple of questions, right? Hey, is there anything that I should know about, right? Never mind. I'll cross that bridge when we're not on camera. Do you have any offers? That's a good one. Hey, do you have any offers? Right? Just because a house is even under contract doesn't mean you don't hold it open. That's not so much a problem right now, but 2021, 2022, whew, open houses were a real chore because they're already under contract by the time the weekend rolls around, But that's the thing, you can still do it, you can still hold them open if the seller is willing to let you, right? And just say, hey, this one's already under contract, but hey, great news, I've got more.
Yeah.
One thing I want to tell you about previewing the house, or best yet, driving around the neighborhood to familiarize yourself. I always get to any listing appointment specifically, and even like the first showing of the day too, if I'm working with the buyer. I always get to the neighborhood 15 minutes early. Okay, I always do it because it gives me the last minute chance to go see those comps and what they look like from the front, right? When I'm looking through my eyes and not a computer screen. And it also allows me to know what's happening in the neighborhood. So I want to give you a quick little story about that. And I'm so glad I did this. I had a previous client that referred me to their sister who had inherited their father's house in kind of the north central part of Dallas. I've lived in this metro area for over 40 years now. Grew up here, right? So there's nothing I don't know where it's at, Yeah. But, I've never really done any real estate work in this particular area. And it's been years since I've been through there. So I drive into the neighborhood early. Now, I knew that this house was an early 50s vintage, probably hadn't had anything done to it, house. And it turned out to be a really weird house, right? Mm-hmm. And I went, and as I'm driving around the neighborhood, I noticed that this neighborhood was built like this. You'd have late 40s, early 50s houses. You had a couple that were nicely rehabilitated, and everything else were McMansions, like brand new, multiple $1-million houses. And I was like, aha. This tells me who's going to buy this house. And I had to switch my entire method. Because the first question I asked this person, I said, let me ask you a question, right? How would you feel? I know that you've inherited this house from your father. You grew up in this house. How would you feel if the buyer bulldozed this house and built one of these mansions that you see popping up in your neighborhood? Is that going to bother you? She goes, nope. As long as I get the money and go buy another house, which is what happened, I'm fine with that. Okay, great. So now I knew exactly who was going to buy that house. And it changed it. Like, I'm not valuing this house based on comps. I'm basing it on the land value because I know that's what's going to happen. Sure enough, I was right. But had I not gotten to the neighborhood, if I was rushing and I'm, screeching the tires to get there on time and, sucking wind as I go up to the door, oh, thank God I'm not late, right? Well, did I miss that time driving through the neighborhood and seeing what's happening? All right. So pick a home in the area and or a price point that you'd like to work. Do the photos look professional? That's the number one thing. Well, one of the number one things when you're dealing with another agent's listing. Are the photos good enough that they're generating interest online, right? Is this house like something I want my name to be associated with? Yeah. Whoops, I'm going to go back because there's one thing. And this might be a beautiful house. It might be in a great neighborhood. It might be priced very well, which is another thing that's important. But people are going to have to take like 6 turns, and it's a confusing neighborhood, and people are going to get lost getting there. I don't think I'm taking that open house. Because people aren't going to be able to find their way to it, right? That open house that's at the very front of the neighborhood, 1 or 2 signs and they're there, man, those are the ones you want. All right, now let's get people in the door. How do we actually get them into the door? Use as many open house signs as you can. Make sure you know the rules on this. Mansfield, great example. I feel like I live in Mansfield, so this kind of hits home. They are so fast to yank open house signs out of public land, right? They will yank them out so fast, but then they'll leave the "Buy My Ugly House" bandit signs out for weeks. It ticks me off. But that's something that you want to know. If you ever want to do an open house in the city of Mansfield, an hour before max to put the signs out. And as soon as you're done, you better go pluck them because they really don't. I mean, they say they give you some grace, but boy, I feel like it's real easy to lose open house signs there.
And when y'all say open house signs, y'all mean like those little ones you buy at like Lowe's?
Those are the ones.
Okay.
Yep. Invite 100 neighbors by door knocking around the address. This will give you a great reason to talk to the neighbors. Man, yeah. Let me just say, if there's one thing I want you to do, it's that. Now, sometimes there's not 100 neighbors around. Sometimes it's the middle of August, and taking hours to go door knock a neighborhood in August may or may not work for you. However, at a bare minimum, the street, go door knock it. Because here's the thing. I think door knocking. Honestly, door knocking is kind of the unsung hero right now. In the past, people either opened their door for you to talk to you or they didn't. Well, now everybody has a Ring doorbell. So even if they don't answer the door, just perform to that Ring doorbell camera, and they'll watch you later, right? It's not that hard. Here's a camera right here. Hey, I'm Mike Serban with Keller Williams. I'm holding 820 Sabine Trail open Saturday from 1 to 3, so I'm here to first apologize for the parking that's going to happen on your street. So I just wanted to let you know, but I also wanted to invite you because I really value what the neighbors' opinions are, and let's face it, you're probably curious anyway. Appreciate it. We'll see you there. I just did that in front of a camera. Right? And so here you go. So now you have the opportunity to still have albeit a one-way conversation, but it's still a conversation that you have with the neighbors, right? The other thing is there's no such thing as a do not knock list. There are do not call lists. You can get in big trouble for those. So I love the idea of door knocking around it. But see, look, you can't do this if you pick up an open house on a Friday the day before you're supposed to go and hold the open house on a Saturday. You don't get to go do the door knocking. And let's face it, why do you hold an open house? It's not to sell that house. I mean, it'd be great if you did. It's to get leads. It's to get people to walk in and they're saying, hey, I'm looking for a house like this. Can someone help me? Okay.
Someone that's interested.
Yep. Send an email. Invite your whole database. So what does it do? It's evidence that you're doing business. Yep. And you know what? You might just have somebody show up that you didn't even know they were considering a move, right? I love that it's evidence that you're doing business. It's evidence that you're doing something, right? Yeah. Look, I mean, lots of agents put properties on the MLS and pray that somebody sells it. But I'm actually out here prospecting every day, and here's evidence. Use social media to set up an event. So like Facebook events are great for that. Invite people. That'll help open house again, promote it. Because again, it's evidence that you're doing something. I love the Facebook events. Invite all your friends to it.
I've seen somebody make posts about open houses. So even after the open houses happen, you can still leave that up and you don't have to take it down?
Well, on Facebook, if it's an event, once the event ends, it's gonna come down automatically. But you could always say something, you could always do a recap. Hey, in case you're wondering how my event went, we had 42 visitors come through this open house. Something like that. So during the open house, yay, the fun part. Not for me. Be sure to capture your contact information when they come in the door. This can be done paper or digital, your choice. Man, let me tell you. If I could tell you to forget the paper, I would. I really love the idea of digital, especially with our command stuff that we have. It's so easy. It's easy to lead capture. And here's the thing. You ever tried to decipher handwriting? So, little known secret. My first job was sacking groceries at 15 years old at Kroger. My second job was at Eckerd Drugs. I worked in the pharmacy. I had to learn how to read doctors' handwritings because back then that's what a prescription was not emailed in. People came in and said, here's my prescription, and it was like, wow. So I can read almost anybody's handwriting. And yet I still can't read buyers' handwriting when they put their, what is this email address? Anyway. Always look for ways that you can be of value to the guests and have several things with you that you can offer. You could have the seller's disclosure. You could have, There's lots of things that you can have, cookies and all that stuff. I really want to hit on this though. If you don't get their contact information, you just wasted your time.
Yeah.
Right? So the KW app, the KW app, that's a really good one actually, because it's right there and you can say, hey, I'm curious. Again, ask a question. When you're looking for properties, what app, do you use an app for it? Oh yeah, I use the Z-Monster. Okay. If you use my app, it'll give you neighborhood data also. Oh, like what do you mean? Well, it'll tell you how fast things are moving or not moving in a particular neighborhood. Zillow doesn't give you that information. Would you like a link to my app? Here. Right? Market information, house information, Keller Mortgage, which is now called Keller Home Loans, or other lender information. I love this right now. So if you don't know, one of the biggest objections we hear from buyers is interest rates are too high, right? So what you might say is, have a flyer. Would you be interested in this house with a 5.5 interest rate? Well, yeah, that's the difference between buying a house and not buying a house from me. Great, so let's talk about how that works for you. As they're touring, find ways that you can start to qualify them using this, whatever this dialogue is. Okay? I would say be careful with that. I mean, you always want to know how serious somebody is. That takes a finesse. You don't want to hound them either, right? And number 4. I was like, there's something this isn't saying. Don't let anyone leave without getting their feedback about the house, please. Your seller is counting on that. Your listing agent, if you're not the agent, they're counting on that information. So if you ever hold my listings open, I expect that from you. I'm going to expect you to door knock. And I'm going to expect you to give me a report. I want to know how many people came in, right? I want to know what you heard. Is anybody squawking about doing an offer? And I'm going to want to know, was it worth your time? Right? I want to make sure that as a listing agent, I want to make sure that I'm giving opportunities that are valuable to our agents, right? Like, what could I have done better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. LP Mama. Location. So these are the things we ask. This is qualifying your client. Location. Is this really where you want to be? Why? If not, where? Location. Price. Is this house priced where you'd like? Mortgage. That's a good one. Are you a cash buyer or are you going to use a mortgage? Right? That matters. That really matters. And I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but it does change the discussion that you have, right? If you know they're going to utilize a mortgage, well, maybe you've got a competitive advantage over other realtors. Oh, that was something else I didn't talk about. So when let's go back, the during, you have to ask if they're working with an agent. You have to ask that. And you also have to be able to get through the firewall, the I'm just looking thing, right? I mean, maybe they are just looking. Maybe they do have a realtor. But always go a level or two deeper. So are you working with a realtor right now? Or I like to say, are you represented by a real estate agent right now? Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, oh great. May I know who they are so that I can bother them instead of you? Oh, well, I really haven't signed anything yet. Or, well, my brother's cousin's dog's former roommates, whatever. Okay, that's not really represented by an agent, right? So maybe you follow it up with, okay, that's perfect. How could I bring you value, right? I love that question. How can I be someone that's a good resource for you? And then, sometimes you never know. You might get the snarky answer. Sometimes you get that snark, mirroring and matching. I don't recommend everybody do this, but I'm not above saying something like, well, okay, Susie Jones is your agent. Where is she? Yeah, it drives me nuts. Like, I don't want my buyers going to open houses without me.
Yeah.
But that's me. Like, now I know there might be times, like it never fails. There's a great open house and I'm out of town on vacation or something, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, go ahead, but please do me a favor. When you sign into that agent, give them my name, give them my phone number, give them my email address, and I'm happy to talk with them, right? Because what I don't want is you as my buyer, if that's the house you want to buy, that person you're talking to is a professional negotiator.
Yeah.
I don't want you giving up anything that could weaken my ability to win for you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Have you talked to a lender yet? Yeah, that's important. Agent. Has an agent been showing you? We already talked about that. Motivation. What is prompting you to start looking? That's a good one if you can get it. Appointment. I'd love to talk more about how we can work together. When can we do that? I don't think it's appropriate to have a discussion with a potential buyer about a different house in a seller's house. Like, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I'd be pissed if it happened in my house.
Yeah.
So if they're like, nah, this probably isn't the house for me, but man, I'd sure love to talk to you about this. Tell you what, I want to fulfill my obligation and my duty to this seller. I'm committed to their needs until the end of this open house, but hey, I'm happy to meet you at a Starbucks 30 minutes after this ends. Does that work for you? Yeah. I lean on Starbucks a lot for that. 6 tips on what to do after. Yeah, there you go. Call that seller or call that listing agent and give them what I told you. How many people came through? How many sounded serious? What did you hear? The good, the bad, and the ugly. For sure. Send a text or an email the same day to thank them for coming to the open house. So this is to the people that signed in your open house. And I can actually show you how to do both automatically without lifting a finger. But it involves you not doing a paper sign-in. You have to do my digital sign-in. Add everyone you met into your database. Again, if you do it my way, that's an automatic. If you're using commands, set them up on a smart plan for an open house follow-up. Again, if you do it my way, that is automatic. You starting to pick up something?
So how do you ensure, like, the digital way? How do you, like, ensure that they did it? Because, like, what if, like, I don't know how you do it, but like, if it's a scan code, it's a QR code, they just scan it, but then don't actually do it, and just tell you they did it? Like, how do you, like, that's the best way to figure that out?
Well, if you're using the command and you're logged into your command app, you'll get a notification as soon as they do it.
Okay.
That's one way to do it. Yeah. Bring value. There you go. This isn't an open house thing, by the way. Anytime you talk to anybody, bring them something of value. Now, notice I didn't say spend money on them. You could, but be valuable to them. And the worst thing you can do is just throw emails out. A huge percent of real estate agents feel like, oh, I'm just going to put someone on a smart plan. I'm just going to email them. I'm just going to text them. I'm never going to call them. And you're never going to get any business out of them either.
Yeah.
All right, so what are some things of value? So a new house for sale. Maybe an open house list for next week. Hey, next week this is where I'm going to be, right? Buying tips, whatever. And then the fortune is in the follow-up. It really is. You know, most salespeople give up after the first no or the first non-response. The magic happens after the 5th.
That's what they were saying yesterday.
It's true, and it is so true.
Let them get mad at you. Like,
Bring value to them. Ask great questions. Bring value to them. It is okay to ask people, listen, I don't want to be a nuisance to you. I want to be a resource for you. Mm-hmm. How can I do that? Right? Yeah. You know, I'm asking you how long you've been looking at houses, and the reason I'm asking you is because I'm not the agent that's just going to add to the noise. I want to know what I can do to help you cut through it. Right? Yeah. It's okay to ask people, right? You know, you think about it, we do it all the time. Every single day. Hey, wife, kids, what do you want for dinner? It's no different. Hey, what do you want in an agent? Well, I want an agent who communicates clearly with me and is honest. Perfect. Great. I can do that. Yeah. Right? What if you heard something like, you know what I want is I want to sell my house quick. I really don't care how much I make. I just want it gone. I'm tired of it. I inherited this house and it's just a whale on my back. Great. I have a solution for that. We can definitely make that happen. And now you go down the iFinder route instead of trying to put the house and put lipstick on a pig and put it on the market and wait months and months and months. That's not what the client asked you for. Ask the client what they want. What do you want? It is that simple. Here you go. Follow up. This is where you turn guests into clients. It's like I knew this was coming. Full disclosure, I might have taught this groundwork session once, and it's probably been a year. So, because it's just not it's not one that I've ever signed up to do. 80% of sales requires at least 5 follow-ups. 44% of salespeople give up after 1 attempt. 94% give up after the 4th attempt. So it just takes the 5th attempt. It takes 5. Okay. Offer value every time you follow up. Every time you talk to anybody, have something for them. Try to contact them in different ways, so vary it up. Yeah. Be intentional. Have it written down. Follow the plan. Have a plan. First off, have a plan. Just like we talked about, where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you want out of life? Let's bring that. Let's have a plan. Well, same thing. Have a plan. And don't give up. Yeah, that's right. You need to either say, okay, let's go look, or just leave me alone, man. Just leave me alone. Today's success list, these are the things that we want you to do. We want you to complete the 5 to Thrive, which is in your packet. We'll talk about that next. Set up that auto email that we talked about in the MLS so that you can see new listings when they come on the market every Monday. Introduce yourself to other agents in the office. Yeah, little secret. The agents that you see here are typically the ones taking listings. Those are listing agents. That's a great look. I'll just say I have, as a listing agent, I've got a couple 100 plus agents that I could choose to hold a listing open. You might want to give me a reason to pick you. Because what do I owe the seller? I owe the seller my very best. Right? So it's okay for listing agents to have a minimum requirement for agents that they allow to hold an open house for. Check out the Command Smart Plans. So the Smart Plan library, which I hope we'll get to tomorrow. But there's some stuff that's already written out there, or you can write your own. I always say when it comes to a follow-up plan, have an idea of what you think would work for you, what sounds good to you, and then you can go look at the Smart Plan library. There's thousands of smart plans out there that are written by other KW agents. Not a one of them costs any money, right? But, we use the term R&D. R&D does not mean research and development. It means rip off and duplicate. Use them for inspiration. Don't try to sound like them, right? All right, so the 5 to Thrive. This will be every groundwork session always ends with this. And that is, think about 5 things that you're grateful for today, and at least one of those things need to be a person, right? And we always want you to do this. This is a habit to get into, I would say twice a day, ideally. It's been a couple months ago, and I can't remember the source, but it was I can't even remember where I heard it, but I remember the message, and the message is the important thing, right? This particular guy was, really a very a manic depressant, always depressed, and, life was going down the tubes, and he decided that the first thing he did when he woke up in the morning, before he ever got out of bed, before he even thought about getting out of bed, is he would tell himself internally 5 things that he was grateful for, however big or small they were. What's he grateful for in that instant? And that was also the last thing he did before he, hopefully fell asleep. That was the first thing he did in the day. It was the last thing he did in the day. And he credits that one thing with absolutely changing his life. I wish I could tell you who it was, but I can't recall. But gratitude is the highest form of energy. And it's never a bad thing to tell somebody, hey, I'm grateful that you came to Groundwork today. I really am. It makes it a lot easier for me when we can have dialogues instead of just talking to the camera all the time, right? So, because again, I can't engage with people who are on the other side of that like I can people in person. So I am grateful for you for doing that, right? Now, I feel better telling you that. Hopefully you feel better hearing that, okay? So 5 face-to-face or voice-to-voice conversations. Make sure you take notes of who they are. You know what you can do is you can tell them that you're grateful for them. There you go, easy. 5 two-way text conversations. 5 people added to your database, and 5 handwritten notes. What do you think is the hardest one of those to do?
For most people?
Probably
add into your database?
You're absolutely right. That's the hardest thing. You got to go meet 5 new people today?
What does it mean by handwritten notes?
Write a handwritten note and give it to somebody. Mail it. Go stick it on their door. I'll tell you how much I like that. If you walk past my office, you'll see 2 handwritten notes on Post-it notes on my window. One of those has been there for over a year. I cherish that stuff.
From people up here?
Yeah, from other agents. One's from Melinda Miller. One is from Judy Porter, who has the office right next to me. She could tell me all the time how she's great. She does. But the fact that she took the time to write it on a Post-it note, which probably took her 8 seconds, and then slap it on my window, I mean, that meant something to me, right?
More meaningful.
And I'm somebody who hates handwritten. That's the hardest thing for me. And I think that's all we do. Yeah, that's it for today. Any questions? I always like to open it up for questions.
I think so.
That's in your booklet.
In the back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, great. So then I'm going to go ahead and end off the live stream here. And so thanks to the live stream people who watch this. I appreciate your time, and I'm